At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
This episode is brought to you by Prime Video. In the small town of Holland, Michigan, nothing is ever what it seems. Behind the tulip festivals and pretty houses lay dark secrets that threaten to tear a marriage apart. Nicole Kidman stars in this darkly twisted thriller about a wife and mother whose quest to uncover her husband's secrets may get her more than she bargained for. Holland, streaming on Prime Video March 27th.
Hey, how's it going? You're listening to Giles and 101 You're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs with me, Giles Bidder. How are you doing? Good to hear from you. Good to speak with you. On today's episode, we've got an absolute bona fide legend. Jim James from My Morning Jacket. What a band, what a legacy. They've been doing their own thing this whole time. If I had to kind of sum up my favorite artists, I think they all come into the pot of doing their own thing, don't care what trends are, dig into their own personality and what they like. I think that makes the most interesting, relatable stuff. My Morning Jacket have this excellent new album out called Is. It's a mythical record. It's a magical record. That song Time Waited that's beneath this. Wow, such an earworm, such a great feeling behind it. Picks you up. Really stoked to speak with Jim James. Shout out to my older brother Will, who put me onto My Morning Jacket and who I'm always trying to impress. So thanks to the rest of you for being here. After the jump, it's Jim James here on 101 Part-Time Jobs. And we start off with Jim talking about his early years in the band when he worked at a zoo.
101 Part-Time Jobs.
I bet many of those jobs weren't very... didn't totally share your vision.
No, they did not. No, that's why I had to have so many, because I had to keep just quitting to then go play shows or whatever. I'd have to quit and then come back and get another crappy job and do that whole thing.
And how long did you do that for? You know, I'm interested because, like, the older I get, man, the more I realize, like, especially in that period of like 18 to 25,
yep,
whatever you do, it feels like that's your identity. And so to kind of break out of that, it's like a real challenge.
It is really interesting. I don't know, though. I feel like I would say I did it for about 10 years or so, from the time I was 15 till, 24, 25, something like that, where I still had to, maintain a side job while I was playing music. But I feel like music was really all that ever kept me tethered to the world. So I feel like that I always made that my priority, but I also understood that I had to have a paying job too, because my dad has a really great work ethic, and he really kind of showed me from when I was a kid, like the practical side of money and stuff,
That's
and
good, yeah.
anything he ever if he helped me get an amplifier or something, he made sure that I had to mow the grass 10 times, at $10 a piece, and that equals $100 or whatever, so that I knew that nothing was free. So he really helped me understand that.
Yeah, I bet that probably came in handy later on with the music business. And when you sign to a label, you're borrowing money, and when the label executive's taking you out for dinner, you're going to be paying that back for sure.
Yep, totally. Yeah, it's wild. Yeah, our first manager, Mike Martinovich, he did this really cool thing where he turned me on to this book Everything You Need to Know About the Music Business by
Okay.
Donald Passman. Have you ever read that book?
No, I haven't heard of it.
Oh my God, it's kind of like the Bible for people who are coming up in the music industry, and it gives you very clear language on like what percentages you should expect from managers and booking agents, and it
Yeah.
also explains things like what you just said. Like the label's basically like a bank, that you're gonna have
Yeah.
to pay back. Um, and that was I try to tell beginning musicians and stuff about that book because I believe that he keeps updating the book too as the music industry changes.
Of which is changing all the time.
Yeah, exactly. That book is so helpful.
That's really good to know. Did you ever like before that, had you ever like fall into the trap of, oh, it's all gonna be fine, like, someone else will look after it? Did you ever?
No, we really were always kind of the opposite. We always thought it was all fucked, like everything was going to go down in flames, because we none of us ever had any money, and we kind of had to work for everything we got, and then when things started happening with the band, we were always very skeptical. We're like, surely they're going to can us after this one or whatever. So we kind of we almost had the opposite, where we're like,
Yeah.
we're going to end up paying for this.
And it must be wild, and the context of that is like music is entertainment, right? Entertainment is trends. There's always gonna be, remember like the new metal trend, and it was like, things come in and out, and if what music's like, especially like even things like festival bills or like playlisting now, like or whatever the equivalent has been. Like, what has it been like staying true to your own vision whilst everything around you? We're only human, right? It makes sense. You're going to say stuff like see bands doing well, artists doing well. Like, obviously, it's not like it's not just like a clear thing. Oh, let's sound more like new metal, for example, in 2005. But it's
Right.
like, how do you not get, I don't know, put off track by that kind of stuff? Because you're only human.
Yeah, well, it's different stages because I feel like music to me is the invisible architecture that holds up the entire universe. Music to me is just as important as air or water or and I think it is to everybody too, even if they don't know it. That's why it's kind of like I like to talk about it being this invisible architecture because I think that trends come and go, and bands come and go, artists come and go, whatever. But I think that music is kind of this thing that if you take it seriously and you love it, it it exists behind all of that. And I remember as a younger person being very bitter, if some other band was super popular and we weren't that popular, and you're driving in a van with no money and you're watching these other bands like getting so popular and doing so well. And for the longest time I would be extremely jealous and extremely bitter, and then I realized like that I have to find my happiness for myself. I have to learn how to love myself, and then I can learn to drop all that bitterness and jealousy because I realized my entire self-worth isn't based on the popularity of my band. Like these
Right.
fickle trends. And we've always been kind of lucky because we've been so fortunate to do what we do, but we've never been a hugely trendy band or hugely successful band. We've never had like number one hit singles or huge stratospheric fame. So, and not that I didn't long for that at some point in my life as a younger person. You always hope you're going to get this thing because you don't know how to love yourself, and you think that if you get stratospheric fame that's going to help you love yourself. But so our career's been really interesting, and my career's been really interesting where I look at it and I just feel so grateful that I've been able to make a living playing music for so long. It's like
Yeah.
that's kinda, at the end of the day, that's it to me with the external thing, because in my heart I love music and I love working on music and I love playing music and stuff. And the world's going to come and go. People are going to like you one year and they're going to hate you the next year, or they're going to love one album or they're going to hate one album. I kind of just have learned that from doing it so long that I can't base my happiness on the external stuff because every time it's the same. Every single album we ever put out, somebody says it's shit, and then somebody else likes it. And it's like, and that's kind of liberating at the end of the day, if you can let go of all that stuff.
What brought you there? What brought you to that place or that understanding about yourself?
Yeah, therapy and yeah, just self-examination and yeah, a lot of I found a really great therapist in the pandemic. So I guess it's been 4 or 5 years now that I've been talking to him and doing EMDR and parts work on myself, and it's just really, really helped me learn to uh, try and love myself and then be better for the world, with that. Because I was always looking outside of myself or trying to escape myself, and and while I'm here on Earth, I'm trying the opposite. I'm trying to be the best that I can to myself.
That's it. And you know when I say 101 part-time jobs, yeah, there's working at the zoo, but it's also the work of putting into yourself.
Yes, that's the greatest work.
That's the damn stuff. It's the relationship stuff, friends, partner, family. It's serious business, isn't that?
Well, it's like Whitney Houston sang so beautifully, learning to love yourself. That is the greatest love of all. It's like that. That song is so powerful and so true because you can't see things clearly until you really learn to respect yourself. It's like
Respect.
I had to think of myself as almost like two people. Like there's my soul, my eternal cosmic soul or whatever, and then there's this person I am now called Jim, and I had to learn to try and love Jim because I always hated Jim, or I dealt with depression, or I wanted to escape Jim or erase Jim, or like I really struggled with that most of my life until I started doing this work to kind of say, okay, this hasn't been working. You've been trying to escape, you've been hating yourself, you've been, and whatever, depression, genetics, chemicals, those kind of things, a lot of people can't help if you've got those depression running through your veins or whatever. But I've been trying to talk about it as much as I can to let people know that I really believe, if you do the work, again, talk about a job, it is kind of a job to find a therapist that you like.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's always a good first step for people to kind of find somebody to talk to, know that they're not alone, know that they, lots of people struggle with depression, lots of people struggle with mental illness or substance abuse or whatever it is, and then use that as a beginning point to try to find that love for yourself.
Mark Maron started talking about this a couple of months ago when he read about it, but this expression, like, you can lose your sense of self, and that sense of self, I think that's probably like something that people with like ADD or ADHD or people who are like making stuff all the time, like, I imagine that there's that kind of tension. I mean, I know I have it. I lose myself for people. I know my partner has it. You just don't think about yourself as much as you should do. And that kind of ends up being bad news.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah, it's like this trick because I think we're also taught that if you think about yourself, you're selfish or whatever. And obviously there's extremes too. Obviously, we can be too selfish or whatever in bad ways. But I think I kind of think of it as like being selflessly selfish or something.
Yeah.
So because we all know what good love and bad love is, and we know what real love is. And I feel like you have to be kind and giving to yourself in a real way. Like to really like then be able to. It is work you're doing for yourself, but also the greatest reward is you can love others better. You can see clearer, and that's the illusion I think that's hard to get past.
Do you think, like, with enough years behind you to like reflect on it, is there like attention, or not attention, something you've had to learn about being the guy at the front of the stage with the microphone, where people are going to think you have that immediate connection, that you have a real connection with fans and artists have real connections, right? And you want to respect that connection, but also save some of it for yourself, and maybe also, not fly away with it when your head gets so big. I was watching that Tom Petty, Cameron Crowe. It was like the first Cameron Crowe feature film, that just came out.
Yeah,
actually.
yeah, it's great.
It got shelved. Yeah, it's amazing. And there's that. I love that bit when Tom Petty, they're playing in Germany, and Tom Petty says something like, I see it coming back at me. I see the love coming back at me, and I see the way that people respond to these songs, but sometimes I don't believe it myself. And I thought, what an interesting relationship to have.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, yeah. Because if you're so many artists are so self-depreciating or self-loathing or and that's the thing. I think it's this weird, interesting doorway that I think so many artists begin. They love music too, but they also are seeking that external validation, and they think that if they can get the world to love them, then everything will be fine. And even when you do, like Tom was saying, it's like even when you do manage to get the world to love you, you still don't believe it. It's still not enough. You're like, oh, I'm still a piece of shit, and blah blah blah. That is the fucking trick, man. It's like the yeah, the music, the live thing is interesting. Yeah, because I've always felt the same way. I've been like, yeah, whatever. Or, it's like I'm kind of still so mean to myself, and that's like this endless thing. You think you can fill this void with all this external energy, but you really can't. And it's like the yeah, it is so hard because I talk to people about this all the time, and a lot of people, say, oh, it's hard to find a therapist, or my health insurance doesn't cover therapy, or I can't afford it, and all those things are so real. Those are real problems but I do think that, and again, I like the theme that we're talking about, this job, this work, it's like, I think if you can try and find some time for yourself to even begin the work of finding a therapist. Find somebody who does sliding scale payments or alternate form of payment, or taking meetings, or because you kind of have to search and hunt, and it sucks that it is that way, but it is that way for so many people in the world, to try to find the care that they need. But I think also just talking about those things with each other and letting people know, like, you're not alone. Everybody, not everybody, but so many people have gone through this, especially artists and musicians, because we often are so sensitive. We're such sensitive creatures, and that usually comes with a lot of self-criticism and self-loathing, and it's tough.
Have you had any mentors? I mentioned Tom Petty, Cameron Crowe. It makes me think you must have met some folk along the way that you've really connected with, and you can talk about this stuff with. You can text each other about it, or you can leave voice notes to each other, and it's like there's a pure communication source there.
Yeah, one of my favorites, my friend Gary, he was kind of like a spirit father to me. And I got to know him for about 12 years before he passed away, like 5 years ago. He was a really great, open spirit role model for me that I really needed.
Who is he? Is he a guy from Louisville?
No, his name's Gary Burden. He was like he did a lot of really great album art over his career, and we became close friends for like the last 12 years of his life, and he was really inspiring person.
Yeah.
That kind of I would call a mentor. And my therapist Tim, he really feels almost like the older brother I never had. He's been like a real mentor to me, and really helped me open up and find a lot of this self-love. I mean, I feel like I have so many wonderful friends and people in my life that I love that are like mentors to me. My sisters are like mentors to me.
Yeah.
I have twin sisters, and they're really they know how to live their truth. They're very truthful people. Very
Yeah.
really like just such ruthlessly honest people, and kind of just such integrity. And yeah, I have so many. I feel so blessed to have so many wonderful friends and family that really inspire me.
Yeah, awesome. As you were chatting then, it's great hearing you talk about that, especially with your sisters, because like sibling relationships are so important. I was
Yeah.
just looking at like Gary Burden's artwork, and he'd done Wing stuff, Neil Young, and it got me thinking Crosby, Stills and Nash, and it got me thinking of like photographers. I don't know much about photographers, but the sort of the documentary bits I've seen on YouTube and what have you, there's like in what so many people think is just like a click of the button and the right framing or whatever, there's a real feeling about it. There's like an energy that a photographer
Oh
brings to their
yeah.
photos.
Oh my God. Yeah, photography is just insane. Yeah, talk about energy capture. You have three different photographers shooting the same thing, and their photos are going to be so different, just wildly different depending on the person's spirit, and what they can see.
Your artwork, there's been so much awesome My Morning Jacket artwork over the years. How often do you chat about it with the other members about it, or your manager? How important is that stuff to you?
Oh, it's so important. Yeah, God, I mean the visual element. I love visual art, and I'm really I direct all of our artwork and album artwork and stuff, and yeah, album artwork and those fonts. I'm crazy about fonts. I'm
Yeah.
insane about fonts. Like I'm kind of always looking for cool fonts out in the world, and I just yeah, because that it's all tied together. It's all part of what makes everything special. It's like this interesting world that we're in has wrapped itself in this way that it has, and it's like, for whatever that's the way people consume music, is obviously vinyl's the coolest visually, of all the mediums of getting a piece of music with the packaging and looking at all that stuff and how it makes you feel, just the vibe that comes off of it. Everybody knows that feeling being in a record store, or you just feel the vibration of the image. And even on streaming services and stuff like that now, even though you only get the one photo, you just get the album cover, you're vibing on it, and you're
Yeah.
feeling it. You're feeling like what it's saying to you, and that's real. All those things are real, and they're so important. And we have actually our drummer Patrick and our bass player Tom have really gotten involved with the merchandising side, like the artwork that for tour posters and T-shirts, and so
Yeah.
we're all pretty not obsessed, but we're pretty nuts about the art and all that stuff.
It's cool to hear. I think there's probably like a chunk of people that think, oh, bands just let other people do that for them, or pay other people to do them for them. It's cool to hear that you're so hands on, and I don't think that it's like the most obvious thing.
Yeah, no, I love visual art, and I love painting and drawing, and I always find the images that I want to be the album covers, or direct that somehow. But then the cool part of that is that's always a collaboration too, because I'm working with somebody like Gary Burden, or somebody who is also a designer themselves, and they know how to use Photoshop, or they know how to use all of the programs or layout things
Yeah.
and those kind of things that I don't know how to use. And so that part is cool, because you can't well, I can't do it by myself. I need people's help.
Thinking of things like, or speaking about this, it makes me think like, you don't always know exactly how it works, but you try, and you're always kind of discovering new things. And it just made me think now about that box that you wear around your neck. And I've just seen one or two photos of it. And me and my brother were talking about it. And my brother is a great guitarist. And he was like, what is that thing that Jim James wears around his neck? So what is it?
It's a sampler. And the reason that it came about was there were several songs. I think it came out on after our Circuital album. There were songs that I wanted to sing and hold the mic, and walk around stage. And there were samples that I wanted to trigger, but I didn't want to be stationary. I didn't want to like play a keyboard or whatever. So I was just looking around and thinking about what to do. And then I was like, oh yeah, what if because I have a wireless guitar rig that my guitars go through. So I just took one of the wireless packs and plugged it into this sampler and just like duct taped the guitar strap. So it's basically just like a guitar. I was like, let me think of this as a guitar, and then I just wear it around my neck, and you can trigger samples from you load them into an SD card. It's an old. I mean, I think they still make them, but it's like it's not hooked up to a computer or anything. You have to put the samples on an SD card, and so you can wear it around your neck.
That's sick. Hey, how inventive.
Thanks.
I mean, it's fun, like, Matt Bellamy from Muse, he put like a Chaos pad, or like, kind of a touch pad at the bottom of his guitar. But it's fucking cool to just know that stuff will never end. There'll always be something new, someone trying something for the first time.
Oh my God, absolutely. I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, that's what is so exciting about music for me is like I feel like every time we make a record or even play a show, it's like we try to do one thing we have never done before, you know. And I'm not even saying we're doing groundbreaking things that nobody has done before or whatever, but I'm just trying to say like we're always like, what can we do that we haven't done before? You know,
Yeah, yeah,
like this new album, we put ourselves on the cover, and we're like, oh, well, you know, I was like, we've never been on one of our covers. You know, let's do that. You know, like let's do like what just little things like that where you can it keeps it fresh, or you know, if we're playing a show or whatever, like let's try and do some moment, you know, here or there that we've never done before. Yeah, I mean, music is infinite. You know, there's
yeah.
infinite possibilities.
And you just did that with the new record because you've co-produced or produced every record before this, and like that's like no sort of light thing to say. Every record before this, you've had a hand in producing, and this one, you gave, you know, in the hands of, obviously you worked together in that way that you're obviously working together. But Brendan O'Brien like produced this one, so that's a brand new thing.
Yeah, so cool. So that kind of goes back to the self-love thing because I feel like I was only able to let go after I did some work on myself and realized that like my ego was kind of getting in the way of myself trying to do everything. You know, I feel like I had to do everything or it wasn't good enough. I had to produce the record, I had to play the record, I had to sing the record, I had to do the artwork, I had to do the, you know, and I don't have any regrets about that either because I'm proud of everything I've done and all that stuff. But it's like I just realized like, especially for this band, I was like, it might really help us to have a coach, you know, somebody who is not our equal or contemporary. He is a coach. You know, he's been in the game longer than us, and it really was so helpful for us as a band to have this mentor to look up to. You know, Brendan was a great mentor. You know, and he has a really amazing way of somehow remaining egoless. And it's never about him. It's always about the song. And a lot of these, you know, top shelf producer people or whatever sometimes carry a giant ego into the room, you know, and it's all about them and all about how many Grammys they've won and how many albums they've sold. And with Brendan, it was just, that was why I kind of felt drawn to working with him because when we started working together, his whole focus was like only on the music in this really refreshing way.
Yeah, hell yeah. Were there bits that you'd maybe demoed, and then when it came round to, you know, the final mix, you were like, I would have not made it sound this way, but this way is fucking awesome.
Well, no, it was actually more of like the song choices and stuff because we did a lot of for this record, we did a thing too where I put all my ideas into the pot. Like I put everything in, even solo record stuff I was working on and voice memos and everything. I put it all into the pot. And Brendan chose a lot of songs that we wouldn't have chosen as a band if we were just making a quote unquote My Morning Jacket record or whatever. We had our kind of favorite quote unquote band songs or whatever. And then, but when I gave the whole entire batch of over 100 demos and recordings and stuff, Brendan chose a lot of interesting ones that were like solo project songs that I've been working on or whatever. So we just did this exercise to kind of step back from ourselves and still, you know, everybody still expressed their opinions or whatever, but I was like, let's try working with the coach and let's see what coach does and how does that work with us? How does that inspire us? And that was really fascinating. And the mix part of it really could not was maybe one of the easiest mixes I've ever been a part of because Brendan would start each song and then I would roll in, you know, after he'd been working on it for hours, and I would kind of come in to give my notes and stuff. And, you know, most of the songs were like just 90% there, you know, just his ear and his engineer Kyle, like the two of them together, just they have ears of gold.
None of those songs hang around a beat too long.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that's Brendan's really big on making a song, keeping it tight, you know, keeping it what needs to be there. And that was a cool exchange too, because we kind of fought for passages that we, you know, still wanted a guitar solo there, still wanted something like that. And he was definitely cool about those things. He's like, all right, you know, if you want if you want the guitar solo, you better make it good. You better make it interesting.
Yeah.
And he's definitely not a jammer. He's not like a meandering kind of guy. Like uh, and whatever, which everything has its place. Sometimes you want to make a record that has 15-minute long songs or whatever, and he's
Mm.
definitely not your guy for that kind of record. But he well, I'm trying to think, like, a beginning from the ending was a solo song I had started. Let Me Know was a solo song I had started. I Can Hear Your Love was a solo song. Out in the Open was one. Like a lot of these, I had started kind of as because I record at home by myself all the time, and I love engineering and gear, and I'm a gearhead, and I know how to use Pro Tools or whatever. So I'm kind of always recording for real.
Mm.
So a lot of this stuff Brendan was into, and it was really cool because we could use a lot of the drum programming I'd done or a lot of the sound effects or whatever, and keep a lot of that beginner's magic that I'd already put into some of these songs, and then find a cool way to get the band in with that.
Yeah. Hell yeah. And you don't get too precious about your solo stuff. You don't get too in the mindset of like, this is what it's for and that's what it will be for.
Well, I used to, for sure. I used to feel really precious about it all. And I feel like there's different eras of our lives where we change and we're different people and we need to say different things and we're dealing with different pain or whatever it is we're going through. The solo thing kind of like, I just love recording by myself so much at home. And I love playing music with so many different people. Like I have so many friends that I love playing music with or whatever.
Mm.
So it's just fun and important for me to explore other avenues. And I think, and all the guys in My Morning Jacket do that too. And I think that really, once we got over the initial fear of that, I think everybody's seen how that has really kept it fresh for us. And that's why we're still a band after 25 years or whatever. Because I think if we kept it too locked down or too precious, we would have broke up a long time ago.
Are you listening to new stuff much? I mean, you got your One Big Holiday, and I'm looking at the lineup, and apart from Dinosaur Jr., I don't know many of those names. Are some of them new? Are some of them? How does it
Yeah.
work there?
Well, there's a lot of really cool artists from Louisville that I've been into lately, like Bendigo Fletcher and Maggie Halfman and Future Killer and Lacey Guthrie. There's like a lot of really great producing a kind generation, the Jesse Lees. There's a lot of amazing artists coming out of Louisville right now, and we're doing like some shows in Louisville too with some of those artists. And there's a lot of really fascinating music right now. There's this band called Magdalena Bay.
Yeah,
I really have been loving their latest record.
my neighbor was telling me about Magdalena Bay.
Yeah, so sick. Just like such beautiful, pop leaning stuff, but real experimental, real psychedelic. There's like Shabazz Palaces. Have you heard of them? They're like
No.
some of the coolest, most psychedelic hip hop ever made.
Yeah.
Um,
Sick.
there's like great artists like Tame Impala or whatever, that are like, bigger artists that are current new artists. There's like, yeah, there's so much. It's almost overwhelming how much great music there is. It's just like,
Thanks so much for the chat. I really appreciate the time. I've got one question or a couple of more questions for you, Jim, if that's cool with
yeah,
you.
yeah, thank you.
Like I'm a big fan of, loving yourself is probably about loving your mistakes as well. And
Yeah.
not, and like, not letting that cross that everyone carries and in some shape or form. And I'm a big believer in laughing it out and enjoying it, in kind of some kind of Schadenfreude kind of way, enjoying your own fuck ups.
Yeah.
Are there any? I'm putting you on the spot here, but whether it was sort of obviously you're all about the music, so I imagine you probably got memories in music, but could go to working at the zoo or any of the side jobs you've done as well. But can you remember a particular day that you thought, I can't wait to go home from this and sit down with a glass of water or a cup of tea?
Oh God, I mean, just, yes, so many. There's so many times. I think that's a hard part of being a sensitive person or being a person who suffers from depression or whatever is feeling that so many times. Feeling like you fucked up so many times. I think as I say that, I'm sure a lot of people can remember that feeling. It's like you're like, oh God, I really fucked that up so bad. And in reality, you probably didn't. You know what I mean? Like, especially with like there's so many shows, especially as a younger person, where I'd come off stage just like so bummed, just like, oh God, I just was so terrible. And then people are coming back into the dressing room. That was so great. Oh my God, that was amazing. And you're like, what? That was just shit. Are you serious? That feeling is so tough. And yeah, I think that's like you said, it's like laughing it off is so important because I think and that comes with friendship and self-love, because our friends are the ones that help us laugh it off, if they're kind of like, oh, come on, man, like, it was fine, we made it, like, you didn't fuck it up that bad or whatever, then you kind of laugh it off. And I think that's like again, just another reason to try and work hard at that job of trying to free yourself by learning to love yourself.
Yeah, man. Friends are good. Friends
Yeah.
are
Friends are everything.
they're fucking. We got a new thing in my friend group where we're called the Wednesday Club because that's when we used to have beers after work on a Wednesday when everyone lived in the same place, and now everyone doesn't live in the same place. We're still, we got this group and we've started doing a Wednesday waffle. So we'll do
Nice.
the face to camera. Could be any length. Could be a 5 minute. Could be 30 seconds of just kind of what you've done that day. And just that basic form of communication that, sometimes I don't want to do it. Sometimes you're like, fuck, these guys don't care about my life. Like every time I get one from any of those 6 dudes, I'm like, I desperately want to know what you've been up to. This is fascinating.
Yeah.
Tell me about that hemorrhoid. Tell me about the different ways that your kids are getting, bottle fed or not or whatever. It's like,
Right.
I love that stuff.
Absolutely.
So there was Jim James here on 101 Part-Time Jobs. Thank you so much for being here. If you haven't already, make sure you click subscribe. We put out 2 episodes every week with interesting, exciting artists. We would love to have you along. My Morning Jacket's new record is out now. Go and give that a listen. Buy it on record. And we'll be back later this week when we've got an episode with London's Snapped Ankles on Thursday. Catch you then.
101 Part-Time Jobs is hosted by Giles Bidder and produced by me, Olivia Swash. This has been a Mighty Moon Media production.